Code monkey, get up, get coffee. Code monkey, go to job. Code monkey, have boring meeting with boring manager Rob. Rob say code monkey very diligent, but his output stink. His code not functional or elegant. What do code monkey think? Code monkey think maybe manager wanna write login page himself. Code monkey not say it out loud. Code monkey not crazy, just proud. Code monkey like Fritos. Code monkey like Tab and Mountain Dew. Code monkey very simple man. Big warm fuzzy secret heart. Code monkey like you. Code monkey like you.
For everything good, there must be some sort of opposite force. I don't know. I don't have anything philosophical to say. These are the worst movies of the year, essentially. I try to be philosophical, but I'm not. Usually most of my philosophies involve stuff. I don't know. So, let's start from the bottom this time and talk about the fifth worst movie and work our way up.
Okay.
You go first.
Alright, so my fifth worst movie is Glass. It's not terrible, but it's also not good. It feels like it was a movie that, it's the finishing of a trilogy, but each of those those first two movies didn't feel at all like they were a part of a trilogy.
Yeah.
And then the third one was like, oh yeah, they're definitely part of a trilogy. Every single one of them. And then it like tries to set up this big thing, and then it goes for it, and then it just falls short. It doesn't make it to the
end.
And it just felt like it was like this. It starts good, and then it feels like this, just like it just suddenly drops the ball and just sits as like a meh kind of ending to a trilogy, and like everyone's dead, and I didn't like it that much. So that's my number 5.
My number 5 is a movie I actually reviewed kind of positively on my channel, which is The Lion King.
Okay.
The live-action remake. Now, I don't hate this movie by any regards. In fact, there's a lot I do kind of like about it. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it is just a lazy, soulless remake that is literally just shot for shot the exact same movie with more added to it to try and make it seem like, no, it's not. It's different and original. And it clearly just reeks of Disney just wanting more money. And the thing is, people will complain all the time about Disney. Disney owns too much. Disney has no new ideas. Here's the thing. So what if Disney owns a bunch of stuff? My question is, have they been making at least entertaining films with that? Mm-hmm. Yes, they have. But these live-action remakes have never really been good. And The Lion King really seems to be the one where people have finally kind of decided, yeah, we've had enough.
I haven't seen The Lion King. All I've heard is the music, and I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of Beyonce singing some songs. She's the queen bee, she can do whatever she wants, but I just don't care.
Her voice didn't work in it.
And it feels out of place, and that's the problem.
Yeah. It's weird that of all things that shouldn't have worked but did work, Seth Rogen as Pumbaa was the best part of the whole movie. Like, Timon and Pumbaa were not only a lot funnier in this movie, they had a lot more to do, their characters were more developed, and they actually had more than one side to them now. They weren't just the comedic sidekicks, they were the comedic sidekicks who actually impacted the plot somewhat, and they were hilarious. Huh. But other than that, there was so much I just thought was okay, or it kind of made me angry. The one thing that really made me angry was what they did with Scar. Jeremy Irons was the perfect voice for Scar, and I knew you couldn't really change that. And I knew, okay, going in, don't expect Jeremy Irons. Yeah. Maybe this new one can work. He sort of does until they try and sing Be Prepared and completely butcher it.
Yeah.
They cut it in half and don't even make it a song so much as spoken word. And I'm left sitting, what are you doing? This is like the greatest Disney villain song ever. Or at least one of them.
Yeah, it's up there, but come on.
How many of them actually involve Nazi propaganda, though?
I don't think that's what being a Disney villain's all about. I think Poor and Unfortunate Souls.
Oh, I know. I'm not saying that's any worse, but I'm saying, like, as Be Prepared in the original...
Oh, it's good.
It's a
real
song
good.
that incorporated fear, terror, a fantastic beat, amazing visuals, and literal Nazi propaganda to show how evil a villain was. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love it so much. And in here, they cut like 90% of it out and it's spoken word.
Yeah.
Overall, I just didn't like this movie that much. It's okay, but I really have no real desire to watch it again.
Yeah. I'll probably end up watching it, but I am a children's pastor, so that, like, some kid's going to want to watch it, and I'm going to watch it with them. That's how it's going to be.
Alright, what do you have for number 4?
For number 4, see, my top 3 are solidified. My top 4 is a little tougher. These movies are movies that I actually really enjoyed watching, but as I was watching them, I knew these movies aren't actually that good. And largely, the one that comes to my mind is, I saw, looking at my list here, it was... Angry Birds 2. I didn't hate Angry Birds 2, but it's a kids movie.
Yeah.
I went and saw it with a group of kids.
Yeah.
Like, I took them to see it, but it fell flat on so many different levels. The comedy is bland. The jokes are bland. The story is minimal. Of course, it's a kids movie again, but this year we had movies like Aladdin, which, even though it's a remake, a good remake.
Yeah.
And it was like, it's got more, there's more there for adults to see. Angry Birds 2 was that one that you just sat there and you're like, well, if that ain't a fart joke, I don't know what is.
To me, Angry Birds, like the movie, the first one and the second one, will do well in theaters, but will probably really find their life on home video.
That's where
they're
it is.
able to essentially just be, like, parents will buy them and just have it so their kids can just watch it and distract them.
And they don't have to watch it with them.
Yeah.
But when you go to the movies in a movie theater,
Yeah.
you have to go with them. And that's the challenge, is that I'm sitting there in this movie theater. From time to time, there's a joke that lands. But it's like last year's Emoji movie. You know, you watch the movie and you're like, yikes, this is rough. But that moment is funny. Good job, Patrick Stewart. Right? Like that. This movie didn't even have Patrick Stewart. And that was a problem for me, too. It could use more Stewart.
I think most movies can be made better with Patrick Stewart.
It's true. Patrick Stewart is a gem. Him and Ian McKellen.
Yeah.
Ooh, baby.
Well, that's me and Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd to me is like bacon. When you put him in anything, 90% of the time it gets better.
I don't know, man. There's this weird show that I watched one episode of with Paul Rudd on Netflix.
What show?
It's called Living With Yourself or something like that.
Yeah, that show.
It's weird. And I can't do it. I was like, Paul Rudd, you had me and you lost me.
That's the 10%.
Yeah.
Number 4 for me is a pseudo remake reboot that nobody asked for, and it's even from a franchise I'm not the biggest fan of. It was the Child's Play remake. I love horror movies. I think they're just kind of good, mindless entertainment. But as they go, I've always liked the characters they can make. The villains who have personality are always kind of fun to watch. Chucky has always been one that I've kind of been on the fence with, that he can be entertaining, but also most of his movies, like there's been like 8 now, only 2 of them I will actually say I liked, not even loved.
I've never seen one single one of those, and I don't plan on seeing any of them.
You're really not missing out on that much, but Brad Dourif does bring a really good personality and a really good character with all of them. And this one, it's a remake in the sense that Universal owns the rights to the name Child's Play, not Chucky, and since the original creator, Don Mancini, didn't want to keep working with them and he wanted to make his own thing, they decided, fine, we'll make our own version, and it really shows. It's one of those horror movies that thinks jump scares is the best form of horror. So to its credit, it does actually have some decent atmosphere, pretty good acting, and okay effects, but overall, the movie really feels soulless and lifeless, and the whole point of the whole first movie is Chucky's trying to get this kid's soul so he won't be trapped in this body. This time, it's literally the doll is evil this time because the factory worker literally set it to evil. That is it. There is no reason behind it. There's no supernatural horror. There's no sense of dread. It's literally just, oh yeah, these things can be made evil because, I don't know. And then, instead of having that same worker kind of become a recurring character, somebody they have to track down, he immediately kills himself because, you got to have that commentary about sweatshop workers and stuff like that. The whole movie, it's not even fun to watch. It just kind of feels unpleasant, and really, it kind of reminded me why I never really cared for this franchise that much to begin with.
Yeah.
What do you have for number 3? And I think now we're heading into the films that are more like...
These are the ones that really get my gears grinding.
Yeah.
You know what really grinds my gears?
Go on.
Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And this also...
I want it to be my worst... It makes me so mad to talk about this movie because it's the one I want to be the worst movie of the year. I want to put it there, but the next two on my list, take it because this movie is at least made well. That's like the problem with this movie is not that Disney didn't put a ton of money into it and like the de-aging of Samuel L. Jackson, real solid.
Oh yeah.
Like the technology's there, the effects are good, the story is written, it's written well, but it's just a dumb story that doesn't need to be told.
Yeah.
It's like a needless movie that didn't need to be put in the MCU as a whole. But even if it were on its own, they would have done much better to avoid nearly as many "I'm a girl who's strong" jokes. It was just needless.
And it's funny, people are like...
the 80s references, or the 90s references, sorry, 80s is other movies. The 90s references, only so many of them are good, and No Doubt, as your music for the final fight scene, are you kidding me? That's like so on the nose that it's just unnecessary.
See,
stop while you're ahead.
And the funny thing is, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, she's such a strong character. She's such
there's no right for her to be that strong."
No, here's the thing: ignoring the whole power thing, she's kind of an idiot. I hate saying this because I don't want to be mean to people who obviously did at least put some time into writing this. She's a character who literally does what she's told by other people, and yet for some reason everyone interprets that as strength. She then only ever has a change of heart when somebody pretty much goes, "Hey, by the way, you should think this." And she goes, "Yeah, I should think that." And then towards the end, like, "No, you should think this." She's like, "Yeah, I should think that." She's essentially a goldfish with God mode activated.
But here's the problem. Here's even more so a problem. She can be a goldfish. She doesn't deserve to have God mode because she is of all the characters in the MCU who have been given powers by the Tesseract, there is no reason she should be any stronger than the Vision, who gets one-handed destroyed by Thanos in Infinity War. Yeah. And then the movie afterwards, which is Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel gets this burst of energy from the Tesseract, and then there's like the all-powerful force that she's the only one who can take down Thanos. And even in the only reason this was Endgame's sticking point for me, was they still gave Captain Marvel a chance to do something that she didn't deserve to do. As a character, just like in the comic books, I love Captain Marvel. In the MCU, she's a waste of space.
Well, add to that the fact that Brie Larson half the time seemed to forget that she was acting. Like, it's weird.
Yeah,
like, I'm somebody, I watch Sci-Fi Channel movies and think, yeah, this works, but a number of times I'm like, was this like the first take that somehow got edited into the movie somehow? Like, I take media editing courses, so I know how many people look at an edit before a movie's done. How did they look at the acting in this and say, yeah, that's good? Because the weird thing is, half the time, she's really good. At least she's passable. She's got a good, she seems to be having fun with it. She's, she works. But the other half, it's like, what happened here? Like, it just sounds so off when compared to everyone else.
Yeah. She's the worst part of... Her characterization is the worst part of Endgame, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
Is that this movie was supposed to create a character I was supposed to care about, and instead it created a character I want nothing to do with.
And I don't feel that much anger about it. I feel more like I really don't care.
Oh, see,
more than anything.
I'm angry purely because in 22 movies there were like 3 misses.
Yeah.
And this is the one that hits me the hardest because it's the one that feels so out of place, and I'm so fearful for Black Widow because it's got this. It feels so much like it's the same thing. Feels like you got this character in the past who can do some stuff, they retconned a bunch of stuff with Captain Marvel that didn't need to be retconned because it wasn't broken. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. They did a bunch of things with like this cat, where people are like the cat, like you're like, I don't care about this cat. Stop making the cat into this big deal. Who cares about the cat?
Yep.
I don't know. It's just it's sorry. That's probably the most worked up I'll get about any of these movies on my list.
No, I get it. No, I'm gonna get pretty worked up when I get to number 1.
Oh boy.
Number 2, I'm going back to horror, but this time I have a lot more reason to not like this movie. It Chapter 2. And I can say why right off the bat. This movie seems to think it has the same impact as Endgame. It's a nearly 4-hour movie, and it goes parading around like, look, we're so great. And half the movie, I'm sitting there like, okay, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. I don't like these characters. This isn't scary. It's trying to be... It thinks gore equals horror, which it doesn't. The character of Pennywise used to be scary, and now has been memed so much that they can't make this character scary in the slightest. None of the characters as adults seem to be thinking, and I get they try and have this excuse to like, oh yeah, well, when they leave the town, they lose their memories, therefore blah blah blah. But even towards the end, it literally just ends with, friendship saves the day, and when they were kids, that made sense, because that's the whole... But my point is, It Chapter 2, it really just kind of thinks that, oh yeah, well, since the first one made so much money, we can just do the same thing again. And they literally, the final hour is pretty much just the first movie again, just now with them as adults. Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking, okay, well, cool. At least hopefully we get a satisfying defeat for Pennywise. He literally gets defeated because they literally act like a comment section in a YouTube video calling him names until he literally dies. Now,
I haven't seen the movie, and I again won't see it. I don't watch horror movies very often. But at the same time, that sounds bad.
Granted, the book was so much stupider. It's like, you gotta have a battle of wills, and this giant turtle that vomited up Earth will come and defeat him or something. Like, Stephen King has good ideas, but he also has a lot of really stupid ideas. Mm. And this really was just a bad movie. And add to that, a lot of the CG was noticeably horrible. Now, the reason why I can still kind of say I got some enjoyment is like the second half of the movie, they kind of essentially go into like a haunted house type vibe where it looks fake, of course, but everything's just so over the top that it is kind of fun to watch because it's just so out there. Mm. But the movie, when you take a step back and look at the movie as it is on all levels, it is just not a good movie. And a lot of people seem to think the same thing. Mm. And I'll tell you this, when a character starts screaming and a zombie vomits black sludge onto them in slow motion, and Angel of the Morning starts playing, you do not want the theater's reaction to be uncontrollable laughter. Like, so many times, and it was supposed to be something horrifying, everyone was laughing uncontrollably. And I'm sitting in the front row because it was the only open seats. Like, really, this should have been, like, horrifying. I was sitting there either laughing or thinking, okay, when is this over? Like, this movie is just a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyhow. What do you have for your second worst?
Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker.
Oof.
Which is... And I know it's a divisive opinion, because a lot of people that I've talked to actually enjoyed elements of it.
But you had a point you made on Facebook the other day
that
perfectly summarized it,
I did. My biggest problem with The Rise of Skywalker is that it requires so much work to understand where the decisions they made came from. Yeah. I understand if Rian Johnson made a movie you didn't like with The Last Jedi. I understand that the fans are upset. And you know what? I didn't really like that one either. I get it. But for J.J. Abrams to come in and change a bunch of things that don't make sense and to do it all these convoluted ways. For example, this is the one I'm trying not to spoil because it's one everyone's going to see. But there's a moment where there's this reveal of something and everyone is supposed to say, oh, "Look at that. That's so cool." And I'm just sitting there like, what does that even mean?
Pretty much.
Why is that color of lightsaber important?
Yeah.
Oh, it turns out you had to watch the Clone Wars and Rebels, and you had to have read some books to really understand why every decision was made. And I'm all for having connection between your books, your comic series, and your movies. I love that. It's what makes the MCU tick for me.
But making it a requirement to understand it
makes it like I think the exact wording I used was, what suburban mom is going to go out to a comic book store on her time off to buy the Darth Vader comic book so that she can understand where the Emperor's been hiding for 20 years?
Yeah.
That's dumb. We don't, like, it just feels like there's things that are put in there that aren't necessary for a movie just because J.J. Abrams didn't like what Rian Johnson did. He can say he's on board all he wants. It feels like they're on completely different pages and that nobody, unlike the MCU, they sat down and said, here it is. A group of movies, we'll let them be what they're going to be, and there's no plan in place. But you know what the worst part is? There probably was a plan, and this was probably it, and that's what hurts the most. That's why this is my most disappointing movie, but it is my second worst of the whole year.
I think I know what your worst is, and I'm pretty sure I have the same one.
But
before we get on to that, thinking back on it, what really annoys me more than anything about this movie is the fact that a lot of characters, like Finn, Poe, and Rey, they couldn't just leave it as they're people that came from nothing yet became something. It has to be you're of a bloodline that gives you importance.
Yeah.
That isn't... I hate that in writing. I get why in some stories it works if you're like the son of like an ancient powerful sorcerer.
Star Wars, I would give it to them. I would give it to Star Wars every single time because Star Wars has always been that.
Yeah.
And yeah, people don't love that, but if they had just been like, spoiler alert, Rey is a Skywalker. She's not. If they had just said, Rey's a Skywalker, I would have been like, okay, great.
Cool.
Instead, what they said was, Rey is the Emperor's granddaughter. And you're like, get out of here. Who's his wife? Who wants to marry a ugly Spider Veins McGee?
Actually, there's a character in the
Tell me, say it.
I forget her name, but
is it in a book that I didn't read because I'm watching a movie, not going to a comic convention?
Yeah. I said it gets
Star
worse
Wars.
though because she impregnated herself with the Emperor's DNA because she was so fascinated and so obsessed with him.
Right, like that.
She's that bald chick that was hanging out next to him when he was in the Senate.
Yeah, but again, in the movie, did they ever say, "Look at this connection between these two characters"? They didn't say any of that. That's foolishness. That doesn't make any sense on a storytelling level, and it doesn't make any sense as a person who's going to watch a movie. As someone who will only watch the movies, because I'm going to break it to you, Star Wars is only okay unless it's the original trilogy. Everything else, I don't care. I'm not watching children's cartoons so I can watch a movie.
Clone Wars was great. The first two seasons were okay.
I'm sure it's good. But again, I've never watched a single episode, and if I wanted to, I would have by now.
Yeah. Anyhow. So...
Here we
Rise
go.
of Skywalker isn't my worst movie. It's definitely one of my most disappointing. I didn't have a lot of films that were actually disappointing this year. Because most films were either really good, or they were just, not bad, but they're the ones I mentioned.
Yeah.
I had a lot more video games that were greatly disappointing than actual movies.
Interesting.
The closest thing I came to a disappointing movie, which was still a lot of fun, was the Banana Splits movie, which
I don't know what that is.
Okay, the Banana Splits. The Banana Splits is a kids' cartoon, a kids' show from the '60s about these four. It's Fleagle, Beagle, Dingle, and Snork, which is a lion, an orangutan, a dog, and an elephant that played in a band and would introduce Hanna-Barbera cartoons.
Okay.
So, it was this weird, kid thing in the '60s. For some reason, they said, let's make a horror movie out of that. And
is that your worst movie?
No.
Okay, just making
this
sure.
is disappointing.
Okay.
And they made them into animatronics because the company, I think it was Fox that made the movie, was going to make a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Then Scott Cawthon backed out, so this is very clearly just them almost throwing a hissy fit over the fact that they didn't get to make Five Nights at Freddy's, so they just took something else.
That's strange.
Now, the movie itself is really dumb, but it's so bad it's good. But it's disappointing because they could have gone further with it, and the ending of it really kind of hints that if they do make a sequel, which I think they are, they're just going to go completely bananas with it, pun totally intended, which is what they should have done now. It's
I'm
dumb
not gonna lie to
fun.
you. That's strange.
I know.
That is weird, and I don't plan on watching it.
I don't think you would, but it's a bizarre movie, but really, that's the most disappointing movie aside from Rise of Skywalker, and I really enjoyed it, though.
Yeah.
But there's one movie that not only made me kind of angry, but made me kind of regret wasting so much time watching the previous movies in the franchise.
Yeah. And that movie is 1, 2, 3.
Dark Phoenix.
Yep, Dark Phoenix. Oh.
I get it. Fox is essentially crying right now because they got bought out by Disney. I get it that they aren't gonna have they aren't gonna make the same money because Disney's actually gonna do it right now. And I get that this movie was essentially, we have the rights, let's do one more and be done with this franchise. That does not excuse ruining the entire franchise and retconning at least 2 movies.
This movie, it was like, what makes it the worst in my mind is that
it felt like a middle finger. Like, I felt like the entire time there was just a middle finger aimed at the audience.
I never felt like that as much as I felt like it was Simon Kinberg who directed this movie instead of just writing it. He wrote X-Men: The Last Stand, which is people would say is the worst X-Men movie.
I like that one.
I don't hate it. It's got bad effects.
Really? The bridge scene still holds up. It's really good.
No, it doesn't. Have you ever looked at Jean Grey's face during that movie?
Okay, yeah, of course.
Okay, good. Just making sure. Then, like...
We looked at Hugh Jackman's face? Oh.
Okay,
Okay,
so
sorry.
look at that. Hugh Jackman holds up. But it's
Okay.
Hugh Jackman.
Okay, yeah, but...
But, like, the effects aren't great, the story is meh, and it butchers a comic book that people love. Okay?
That's par for the course. They've never got the Dark Phoenix right.
Never.
And this movie proves
But
it.
then this one, they were like, Simon Kinberg was like, I wrote the last one, didn't go well. And he even acknowledged, he said, I know this wasn't a good time for us. However, what if I told you that I was directing this one too? Not just writing. So we wrote it and directed it. And produced it. And then he shows up and makes the same movie, but worse. How do you, like, you didn't get the message, did you, buddy?
No.
And you didn't get that nobody liked your movie?
And
Except,
I know,
like, they liked it on, like, a general level, and that's where it was okay, but then you were like, you know what, no. I was right this whole time.
yeah.
Everything I chose was correct.
See...
So I'm just do it again.
And there's one thing about this movie that makes it... I don't care about the fact that it kind of ignores Apocalypse. I don't care about some of the, like, weird, like, sort of retcons. There's one thing, like a Storm suddenly being with them, even though she was sort of a villain in the last one, even though the ending of that one kind of said, she might join up. There was one thing that just, after seeing it at the beginning of the movie, I was genuinely angry for a bit and could not look past it. And that was Professor X. Now, his character across the entire franchise, not including the movies, but comics, TV shows, has always been this kind, caring man. He has always been someone who believes in the best, who believes in helping others, and I get it. No one is perfect. In fact, some of the best comic storylines involve heroes acting selfishly or making mistakes, and then having to live with the consequences of their actions. Professor X is no different. In fact, X-Men 3, while people will complain that his death was kind of pointless, it was to me, it's a powerful scene when he realizes, okay, I made a mistake here. I was trying to control her. Yeah. That wasn't the right thing. And he realizes in his last moments, I screwed up, essentially. Yeah. And at the beginning of this movie, it looks like he's going to be this kind, caring father figure that he always has been. I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm not going to say it's good. Let's see where it's going.
No, those first 10 minutes
Those
gave me
first
hope.
10 yeah.
They
And
were like
then-
doing cool stuff with the president. They were actually the X-Men were a real team in a space shuttle.
Yeah,
it
like
was
that-
so cool.
And then all of a sudden he becomes this asshole attention seeker, and I'm like, okay.
See, I would argue something just a little different. I would argue not that he becomes a bad guy, because I think in that movie Professor X is the one redeeming character. However, I will say that the way the rest of the characters in the movie respond to Professor X making him into a villain is what enrages me most. It's not that Professor X is a bad guy in this movie, because everything he does is justified. Every single thing. There's not a single moment where I'm like, Professor X was unjustified in doing that. No, it's everyone saying things like, you know what, Professor X? It's always the women who are saving the men around here. Why don't you just stop being Professor X? And you should have known better. And you're like, but
He didn't.
he did.
You didn't either.
But he also did know better. This, and like, all of the things that actually happened in this movie have nothing to do with Professor X. In X-Men The Last Stand, the plot is Professor X hides the Phoenix Force away inside of Jean. It breaks free because of an event, which happens to be like a resurrection. That's good. It breaks free, and now Professor X is on the hook for that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
In this movie, Professor X took her away from a father who took her into his home after a father abandoned her and would have just like handed her off to the police.
Yep.
When she showed up, and everyone's like, "You should have told her." And you're like, sure.
She killed her parents, okay?
She killed somebody, and he still took care of her.
Yeah.
The guy loves her. Obviously, he made a mistake, but like this, and then that becomes the whole crux of the movie is Professor X didn't tell you about your dad, so now you're killing people? No, it's the Phoenix Force, which again was poorly done. But the Phoenix Force should have been the thing that made you do all this bad stuff. So that there should have been a dichotomy. There should have been Jean Grey, the good X-Men character, and the Phoenix Force, which she has to learn to overcome so that she can use the Force for good.
Yep.
She never does that. What ends up happening is she says, "I'm Jean Grey. I'm gonna be good now," and she just does it. Instead of the Phoenix Force being like, no, the Phoenix Force is the enemy here. And like the aliens. Why
What
were the
aliens?
Yeah,
Like,
what were the aliens
Were they a
doing?
Skrull or something? Like,
No,
what were
they're
they
the
supposed-
Dabari. They're supposed to be in the comic books. This was them saying, you know what? Let's put some comic accurate things in this movie. Aliens, but they don't have them. They don't have an end. Like any
They
of
don't
the
have an end goal. They just sort of show
There's
up
no
like, hey.
Enchron crystals. There's
Well,
nothing
the funny thing
important.
is, they almost seem like the good guys at times. They're like, yeah, we can help you, but then it's also like, we want you to kill people, but it's also like, we can help.
I feel bad for Jessica Chastain, who simply had to stand there and say a bunch of nonsense words and just get subtitled out of that whole movie.
I feel bad
and then
for-
stand there and say, I'm a villain.
I feel bad for
What?
most of the cast in this. Like, it's clear they're trying their best, but it feels like there was like 3 different scripts that, what's the guy's name again?
Simon Kinberg.
That he wrote.
Yeah.
And he essentially went, okay,
Like
I'm
that
just gonna...
train scene, which feels so out of place.
Well, it feels like, originally it was supposed to be in space.
Well, they had to rewrite it because it can't be too close to Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Good old Disney.
What happened was, like, it feels like he wrote like 5 different scripts, like 5 different versions.
Yeah.
And then just stapled all of them together and then gave them to all the actors. Or accidentally sent different versions of each script to different actors.
Yeah.
And they're all trying their best. But then all of a sudden, like, you know, Jennifer Lawrence, Mystique, just up and dies. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
but that's because she wanted out.
yeah.
She was
I
done
knew
with
that.
the movie, so she did her part at the beginning, which you can tell she's phoning it in. She's phoning it in at the beginning. Her makeup's just like put it on so we can take it off in 10 minutes. And then she like walks in, says a bunch of lines that are just out of place and weird.
Then dies.
And then she dies. And apparently that's supposed to be such a motivator for the characters, but all it motivates people to do is to do the opposite of what characters would do. Since when would Beast be like, you know what, I need to kill this person? When?
Beast is a pacifist, first of all.
Yeah, when would Beast ever be like,
Heck.
the whole thing about Beast is that he is a monster, but he wants to be a better man, not a monster.
His whole thing is words before fists. Like, he's the strategist. He's the one who tries to talk things out.
And
He's
when
the
he
one...
has to fight, he fights. And that's what makes him cool. But in this movie, they're like, I'm going to Magneto, kill her. Kill. Kill her. Also, what makes you think that Magneto can kill her if apparently she's so powerful with this Phoenix Force? Everything about it feels weird. I watched it again. I went on a trip to California, and I watched it on the plane, and it was a long plane ride. That shouldn't... Movies should help me pass the time, not make me feel like it's taken forever.
Yeah. And I forget which comic it was, but there was one comic where Beast actually did kill somebody. I forget what it was.
And he probably felt terrible.
Well, that's the whole thing. It was like there was like the rest. It happens early in the story when he accidentally. I think it was he was trying to stop a robber and he accidentally killed him.
Right.
And the rest of it is him trying to act like like nonchalant on the other X-Men. And he breaks down into tears when he because he finds that in the guy's wallet, this guy had a family. And he realizes, I've just taken a father away from his children.
But in this one,
he's like,
Beast is
kill everybody.
Killer. Just like, that's the first go-to thing. Not let's try and save our friend who is obviously misunderstood.
Now, now, when you look, you could also say, like, okay, but Beast has been a bit more aggressive in this new series of films. Sure. Maybe the whole Kelsey Grammer version of Beast is what he grows up into. The thing is, at no point in any, First Class actually showed him pretty peaceful, but Future Past, Apocalypse, and this one all kind of show him as never really looking at peace as an option. He's more like, okay, let's fight.
And that's not a bad thing in his youth. Like, I think Days of Future Past did it
if
excellently.
they had hinted at least at saying, he doesn't want to, or he's at least or at least he has that scene where he's like, what have I done? And starts to think maybe I should be a little bit more, restrained.
Yeah.
That would have been better, but it just is this...
Generally, this movie is the worst purely because it is poorly written, the effects are terrible, the soundtrack is uneventful, Professor X is actually a good guy, but yet we're making him out to be this villain.
Yeah.
That's dumb. And Simon Kinberg both wrote it, produced it, and directed it. We should never let anyone have that much power.
That's what Tommy Wiseau did with The Room. He wrote, direct, produced, and starred in it.
We shouldn't let someone have that much power, especially somebody who has already done it worse.
Yeah.
Disney obviously was just like, I know we're not going to make any money on this, so just get it out so it's out of the way. You know what? Good for Disney. I look forward to Avengers vs. X-Men. Give it your best shot.
And you know what? What really, I think the final thing that annoys me is that this movie came out after Logan.
Yeah.
Say what you want about the Deadpool movies. Like, I know Deadpool 2 came out before this, but Logan was the last X-Men movie, technically.
The X-Men movies are hit or miss. 1 and 2, excellent. 3, okay. 4?
First Class, okay.
4, not so great. 5? First Class, awesome. 6?
Future Past, love it.
No, 6 wasn't. Well, was 6? 6 was Future Past. 6.
No, 6 was Apocalypse.
No. Apocalypse comes after Future Past. So it goes
X-Men United, Last Stand, First Class, Origins Wolverine is also in there.
Yeah,
I like
bad.
Origins Wolverine. It's so bad it's good. So technically, 6 would be Future Past, which I like a lot.
Yeah, I love Future Past.
Apocalypse.
Yeah, I hated Apocalypse.
Deadpool 2, Logan, and now Dark Phoenix. So it's been 11 of these technically.
Yeah. But what is most disappointing about this movie is that we probably should have known. We probably should have said, you know what, this movie's not going to be good.
Actually, I knew that going in. I'm like, I'm not expecting anything.
Too,
I went in like, I'm not expecting anything good. And leaving, I'm like, I feel disappointed and I expected nothing.
But yeah, that's the problem. Is I knew I wasn't going to get anything good, but I got something worse than not even good. It's about as bad, maybe worse, than Fant 4 Stick.
Yeah.
Or Fantastic Four, for those of you who don't get the joke about the promotional art.
Yeah.
Want to hear some good news, though?
Yeah, sure. Let's wrap this up with some good news.
2020 is shaping up to be a great year. We have some good stuff in there. We have some stuff I'm not so sure about, but we have some good movies. I think that there's hope abundant.
Wonder Woman 84. It looks great.
Looks solid. Yeah. No, DC is slow. If Black Widow is as lame as I think it's going to be, because it doesn't matter, Wonder Woman's the movie to watch for this year. Granted, there's probably also going to be a lot of smaller indie films that are going to take the stage. You're going to get an Avatar 2. I don't know if anyone cares about that anymore.
Nope, it's not until 2021.
Oh, yeah. So then does that mean there's another Star Wars this year?
Nope.
Oh, thank goodness. I don't think I could do another Rise of
Next
Skywalker.
year, the big movie is Sonic the Hedgehog.
You know what?
I'm looking forward to
I'm
it. It's going to be
looking forward
bad.
to it, too.
Like, I'm expecting it to be
I don't
bad.
know anymore.
Okay, I don't know anymore. Yeah.
When a company says, we've made a mistake, let me try again, it gives me such hope. It's like Nintendo saying, oh, we are pushing back the release date of Animal Crossing because it's not going to be good enough for you. That gives me hope because it means they care enough to
You want to talk about hype for 2020? Let's talk about video games. That could be a whole separate video, but Doom Eternal, Animal Crossing,
Animal Crossing's gonna
Persona 5, Cyberpunk.
Persona 5?
No, I'm just listing off games people are excited for. Final Fantasy VII
Persona
remake.
5's already out.
They're making like a Royale thing. It's not like I don't know, it's some new name for it.
Good old JRPGs that are weird. All right.
I don't know, Final Fantasy VII. Like, there's a lot.
There's a lot of good stuff.
Really, there's a lot to look forward to in 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Heck, all of it might suck. All of it might be amazing. The only way we're going to find out is if we keep looking to the future.
Amen, brother.
Yep. So, thanks for watching, everyone, and till next time, keep cool. I'll catch you giant dudes around. Later.